Please.
Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of Central Coast Newspaper's video news. Today we're joined by, I'm Jackie Pearson, and today we're joined by Emma Simkin, journalist for ABC Radio Central Coast, and we're going to have a chat about the imminent sale at auction on the 24th of October of the coastal shoals in Davistown. Hello Emma, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So, Davistown Wetlands up for sale. In private hands at the moment. The Altavilla family wants to realise a profit from this land. There was a public meeting earlier this week, well attended, and the community wants to see if they can keep these precious wetlands away from developers, basically. Doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm from either council or the state government.
It's a complex issue, isn't it, Jackie? It's not just about the wetlands per se. You've got both levels of government, state and local, that potentially have a vested interest in the wetlands, and you've got the local concerns and Indigenous concerns with the land as well. So it's a multifaceted one. It's not the first time that the land has been up for sale. Some say you can't even put a value on the land. I think the value is some $124 million. Mm-hmm. Some say you can't put a value, they're so precious with what the wetlands contain. But as to who would take ownership of the land, it's Zone 7A, so that means it's not zoned for multi-purpose development. It would be a single property that could go on that land, and then it would have to go before council. So there's a lot to consider.
There is. Let's have a look, first of all, let's have a look at a brief history. So there is a rich prehistory in this area. I understand that this was a very popular fishing area in Indigenous Australian times. Then we have the post-colonial history. The Davis family owned this land, and at some stage, I think in the 50s, sold it to Gosford Council. Then in more recent history, there was discussion about whether it should be part of the coastal open spaces system, and council at some stage sold the land. Mayor Jane Smith was at the community meeting on Monday night and basically said that she did not believe the council should be beholden or bullied by a developer. Historically, isn't this an area that should have some protection?
Well, I guess the issue raised here is that council has had the opportunity in the past to buy the land, and we know that Jane Smith was part of the committee in her work with CEN and her environmental background to look and assess at whether or not that land is something that should go back into council's hands. It was decided at the time for council not to purchase the land. I've spoken with the state member, Adam Crouch, who was unable to attend the local meeting due to parliamentary commitments. He says it's not a state government issue, even though we know that in the Coastal Management Act there is an issue there over acquiring wetlands.
Yes, and now the Coastal Zone Management Act has not been enacted. It was put together in 2016, but we're still waiting for it to become law. We have definitely the SEP, the Wetlands SEP, State Environment Protection Plan, says that the state government would prefer to actively acquire and protect wetlands. So how then can the member for Terrigal say that it's not a state government issue?
He's referred to it as scaremongering, that this is not about a development. This isn't about being sold to developers and that the land isn't going to be developed. He's saying that that is nothing short of scaremongering, that it's not a state issue, that it's in a private hands at the moment, and that it's unlikely that the land is going to be sold.
Well, it's going to auction in Sydney on the 24th of October. There's a website, it's owned by Tony Altavilla, the land, but Larry Altavilla has a real estate agency, and he is basically saying that it's a fantastic acquisition for any developer any investor is the word he uses.
I guess
Now,
the issue is, how is that land going to be developed? How can it be developed by virtue of the fact that it is a wetland?
well, it can be rezoned. That we've known, particularly on the Central Coast, for stranger things to happen.
I heard some laughing at Chinese investors potentially buying it, and it would be a perfect spot for a Chinese theme park.
Oh, gracious. Okay. Runway even. So another thing that was discussed at the Davistown public meeting was the idea of a community purchase, that somehow perhaps crowdfunding, perhaps through government grants, the community could acquire and protect this land. Does that idea have any validity, any legs, do you think?
Where's $124 million going to come from?
Yes, well...
if that's the value of the land. But, I mean, that's what we'll find out later this month in Sydney when the land goes to auction. It may not be sold, Jackie. That's also what we have to remember. But I think council's made it clear that at this point in time, I don't think council's not going to be held to ransom, as you mentioned. Jane Smith made that clear, the new mayor. They're not going to be held to ransom by a property developer and purchase the land back for $124 million. The state government isn't going to purchase it for $124 million, and the community doesn't have $124 million. So I don't know who's going to buy it.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see what the reserve is at the auction. Tony Altavilla actually attended the community meeting and stood up and said, look, I'm the friendliest owner of the land that you could possibly ask for. I will look after it, and I don't really want to sell it to private interests. Can I work with council? Can I work with the community? Coast Community News is going to talk to a local elder about the Aboriginal history, so watch this space. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks, Jackie.